After a chaotic festival that saw Jima's cooking skills and sword prowess reach legendary status, it seems the world is finally taking notice of the sashimi sword saint. If you missed the duel that shattered the Academy's hierarchy, make sure to catch up on the previous part linked above. Kang Jima stands within the dim interior of a weapons shop, the heavy atmosphere smelling of iron and fire. He places a large golden object onto the wooden counter. It is the horn of the Cow King, a legendary material harvested from the boss of the Buffalo Hidden Dungeon. In the hands of a skilled crafter, this item guarantees success when enhancing weapons below a rank. Jima requests an enhancement. The blacksmith, a burly man with a beard, stares at the golden horn in stunned silence. Sweat beads on his forehead. He cannot believe a student from the academy actually possesses such a high-tier material. It is the byproduct of an rank beast, a creature that usually requires a full-rate team to suppress. The blacksmith asks if Jima hunted it alone. Maintaining his policy of avoiding unnecessary attention, Jima lies smoothly. He claims he achieved the feat with his team. He then places his primary weapon on the counter next to the horn. It is a simple sashimi knife. The blade is in a sorry state, the edge is chipped, the steel scarred and jagged from the violent impact of cutting through thick hide and bone. The blacksmith picks up the ruined tool, his face twisting into a mix of confusion and rage. He demands to know what Jima did to reduce a weapon to such scrap. Jima looks at the knife with a detached expression. He asks if it can be repaired during the enhancement process. The blacksmith scolds him for handling the tool so recklessly, but Jima deflects the anger with a polite, insincere comment about worrying for the smith's safety. He leaves the shop, entrusting the work to the artisan. As he walks away, the blacksmith grumbles but prepares his hammer. Jima has provided the materials. Now he must wait for the results. Later, in the quiet of the lecture hall, Jima reflects on his growth. He calls up his status window. The holographic text of the blessing of the sword god glows before his eyes. The description confirms that if he cuts, the target will be severed. His physical and mental ranks have adjusted, and the blessing grants a passive intimidation effect. Most importantly, the synchronization rate has risen to 12.7%. Unlike his base statistics, which grow incrementally, the synchronization rate jumps dramatically after surviving major events. Jima realizes that clearing the dungeon was the trigger. If he continues to clear dungeons, the rate will rise, unlocking more of the sealed power within the blessing. He runs a hand through his hair. A distinct streak of white has appeared in his dark bangs. It is a side effect of the rapid power increase. He silently hopes that the physical toll limits itself to pigmentation and does not lead to hair loss. The price of power is steep, but he accepts it. Forces within the academy are actively targeting his life. He cannot afford to die a meaningless death. He resolves to study the mechanics of his blessings further, noting the massive gap between those who hold such powers and those who do not. Jima notices a small, wrapped suite on his desk. It is a celebratory ryokan, a gift for clearing the dungeon. He realizes that for the first time, he has formed a party and cleared a threat. He has people he might tentatively call friends, though he questions if the assassin Chloe views him that way. The piece is short-lived. The lecture hall fills as students return to their seats. Jima rests his chin on his hand, waiting for the instructor known as the Sword Emperor. His phone vibrates on the desk. The screen lights up with a notification. The time is 8:54. The message is from an unidentified user. It reads simply, "Look in front of you." Jima stares at the screen. The wallpaper displayed is a picture of a pink-haired girl, but the message carries a foreboding weight. He slowly lifts his head. The double doors of the lecture hall fly open. A female student strides in, radiating supreme confidence. She has long blue hair tied back with red ribbons and two distinct, horn-like protrusions on her head. The bald instructor at the podium clears his throat and makes an announcement. As of today, Cadet Ryujo Saki has been reassigned to this class. The room erupts in whispers. Jima feels a headache forming. He recognizes her immediately. Among this year's cadets, known as the Generation of Miracles, Ryujo Saki ranks 4th. She is a genius who topped the written exams and possesses combat skills to match. She is the daughter of Saki Kojima, one of the 7-star heroes known as the Absolute Bow and the Prime Minister of Japan. In this world, she is effectively royalty. Her presence attracts the kind of attention Jima desperately tries to avoid. He prays silently that she will not approach him. Ryujo Saki ignores the rest of the class. She walks up the stairs, her eyes locked onto one person. She stops directly in front of Jima's desk. She reaches down and snatches the sweet yokan from his desk. She tells him that if he is not going to eat it, she will take it back. It was her gift to him. Jima freezes. The entire class is watching. Saki smiles, a predatory glint in her eyes. She asks if she can sit next to him. Before he can refuse, she holds up her phone, displaying a code. She demands that he save her number immediately. Jima realizes his bad premonition was correct. The quiet academy life he desires is drifting further away. Meanwhile, far from the academy grounds, the investigation into the hidden dungeon continues under the cover of night. Government agents have cordoned off the area with yellow tape. An investigator interviews a man in a cap regarding the team that entered the dungeon. The witness confirms that the staff member, the traitor Jima defeated, insisted on entering the dungeon out of concern for the cadets. The investigator dismisses the witness and joins his partner near the shipping containers. They light cigarettes, the smoke curling into the night air. The situation is irregular. Death in a dungeon is a common accident, but usually a body remains. This time, the scene inside the gate was horrific. The investigator recalls what he saw when he entered the dungeon for the search. It was not just a battleground. It was a slaughterhouse. A mountain of buffalo corpses lay soaked in blood. It was a scene of devastation far beyond what mere cadets should be capable of producing. Yet, the cadets returned safely, while the staff member vanished as if he never existed. They speculate on the location of the missing body. One investigator wonders if it is still inside the stone gate, but notes that the gate has never opened before. The investigation has hit a wall. Since the survivors are students of the elite Joaquin Academy, many of whom are nobles, obtaining a warrant for interrogation is politically impossible. One of the investigators excuses himself for a bathroom break, walking into the shadows between the containers. He sighs, frustrated by the dead-end keys. Suddenly the surge of purple magic erupts from the darkness. There is no time to scream. The investigator is slammed against the metal container by a violent telekinetic force. A woman steps out of the shadows. She has short, pale hair and glowing purple eyes. It is the purple-haired instructor, the mastermind Giamma identified. She does not look concerned by the presence of federal agents. She raises a hand, wreathed in dark, corrupt energy. She looks down at the struggling agent with a cold, amused expression. She bids him goodbye. With a sickening crunch, the magic crushes the life from him. The purple-haired woman stands over the fresh corpse. She is a human who has made a pact with demons, a being that exists halfway between humanity and hell. She gazes at her work, her eyes glowing with malicious intent. She muses aloud that her enemies lack awareness. The Academy and the investigators are playing a game they do not understand, and she is cleaning up the loose ends to ensure her faction's secrets remain buried. The war in the shadows has only just begun. The morning light filters into the lecture hall of the Academy, illuminating a breach in the usual rigid discipline. Ryujo Saki, the blue-haired student known for her lethargy, sits casually next to Kane Giamma. She tears into a snack with zero regard for the atmosphere, the crinkling wrapper echoing in the quiet room. When Giamma glances at her, she offers a piece, but her demeanor has shifted. She insists that he call her by her given name, Ryudo, rather than her surname, Saki. She claims that in her homeland, close friends utilize first names. Giamma, ever practical, points out that the student known as Weapon also calls her Saki. Ryujo dismisses this instantly, stating it has nothing to do with their specific dynamic. She settles into her seat, announcing that she will be performing mental training. In seconds, she is asleep. Giamma observes her. He does not react with surprise, merely noting the change in her proximity. To the rest of the class, she is a slacker. To Giamma, she is a variable that has decided to align itself with him. In the back of the room, the political gears of the Academy begin to turn. Rachel Demuret leans back in her chair, her eyes sharp as she addresses Abel von Nabelung. Rachel has noticed the anomaly immediately. Sati was not originally in this class. Class reassignments in the Academy are rare, typically occurring only when a seat opens due to failure or incapacitation. Rachel casually mentions that Saki has been reassigned to their division. Abel, maintaining her haughty exterior, scoffs at the idea, labeling Saki as the kid who always lazed around in the archery hall. Rachel, however, possesses information that Abel ignores. She reveals that last week, Saki teamed up with Kane Giamma to clear the Buffalo Dungeon. The mention of the dungeon causes a flicker of reaction in Abel. Rachel presses the advantage. She questions why Abel seems disappointed, teasing her about the hierarchy of attention surrounding Giamma. Rachel reminds Abel that she had seemingly reserved Giamma for herself. Abel flushes with anger, demanding to know what Rachel is implying. Rachel's observation is clinically precise. Abel reacts viscerally whenever Giamma's name is spoken. Abel slams her hand on the desk, her composure fracturing. She declares that she has only spoken to Giamma a few times and that no relationship exists. She demands Rachel stop making assumptions, but Rachel, sensing blood in the water, only smiles. She notes that Abel said there is nothing until now, implying the future remains open. Abel's mind, however, is not just on romance, but on recognition. Her thoughts drift to a private meeting with her grandfather, the legendary Sword Emperor. In her memory, the Sword Emperor sits in a high-backed chair, sipping tea. Abel confronted him after the midterm exams. She had asked to be in charge of the first-year special class, a request born of a desire to prove herself. But her grandfather's reaction had stung. The Sword Emperor, a man usually bored by the mediocrity of the modern era, had shown genuine excitement. But that excitement was not for his granddaughter, it was for King Giamma. Abel looks at Giamma's back in the present day. She admits the truth to herself, a painful concession for someone of her pride. Giamma is a once-in-a-lifetime genius. He ignores status, billable backgrounds, and politics, solving every problem through pure, overwhelming strength. She notes that he has grown from a scrawny boy into a sharp, physically imposing young man. She compares him to Leon van Reinhardt, the supposed hero candidate. In Abel's eyes, Giamma is the one truly walking the path of a hero. Yet he never boasts, he walks a thorny path in silence. If he were arrogant, she could hate him. But his humility makes her jealousy feel petty. She realizes she is embarrassed because she seeks the acknowledgement he effortlessly commands. Rachel interrupts Abel's internal monologue, leaning in close with a predatory grin. If Abel insists she has no feelings for Giamma, then Rachel feels relief. Rachel declares that this means she does not have to compete with Abel. She is confident she can handle Ryojo Saki or any other rivals, but competing against the Harris of the Sword Emperor would have been difficult. Rachel explicitly admits her interest in Giamma. Abel freezes. The realization that Rachel is serious forces Abel to confront her own denial. But she remains silent, unable to articulate her complex mix of rivalry and attraction. At the front of the room, the lecture begins. A professor with pale green hair stands before the blackboard, discussing the theory of blessings. He explains that the rank of a blessing is determined by the entity residing within it. He lists the hierarchy on the board: heroic spirit, guardian spirit, and personal spirit. A student raises a hand, asking if an ancestor residing in a blessing would make it an ancestor class. The professor mocks the question, stating that ancestors might help lift weights at the gym, but they do not inhabit blessings. Ryojo Saki ignores the lecture entirely. She is asleep at her desk. The professor notices Saki sleeping but hesitates. He wonders if the student is truly untouchable, even for the faculty. Giamma stirs slightly. He looks at Saki, who is sound asleep beside him. He thinks about the vacancy in the class. The student named Chloe is currently hospitalized, which opened the seat Saki now occupies. Giamma reflects on the dungeon run. While Saki sleeps like a log now, her performance in the dungeon was undeniable. She handled the cleanup efficiently. Giamma acknowledges that her skills with a blade are on a completely different level compared to the student known as Weapon. He senses the lethality hidden beneath her drowsy exterior. The professor continues, trying to encourage the class. He notes that most cadets possess personal class blessings. He attempts to comfort them by saying that if used skillfully, a personal class blessing can be as effective as a guardian class one. He adds that spirit class blessings are incredibly rare. A student asks about the highest tier, the heroic class, or hero grade blessings. The atmosphere in the room shifts. The professor hesitates, admitting that as a scholar, he considers them practically legends. Since the first manifestation of blessings in human history, only one person has ever possessed one. An image of a hulking, armored figure flashes on the screen. The founding hero, Balor Jolkian. The professor adds a caveat. In modern times, there is one more exception. The miracle blessing. The bell rings, cutting the lecture short. The students begin to file out, but Giamma remains behind. He approaches the podium as the professor organizes his notes. Giamma asks a question that seems innocuous on the surface. He references a common phrase used in the academy and the world at large. May the blessing of the gods be with you. The professor looks up, puzzled. He asks if Giamma knows the phrase. Giamma's expression is unreadable. He states that he does not understand the intent of the question because there is a fundamental contradiction in the statement. The professor asks what the contradiction is. Giamma delivers his answer with cold certainty, because there are no gods left in this world. The professor pauses. A smile creeps onto his face, not of mockery, but of intrigue. He compliments Giamma's thirst for knowledge and invites him to visit the research lab if he has more questions. The room empties. Giamma returns to his seat. Saki is still there, refusing to wake up. Giamma decides that the quiet classroom is a better place to rest than the dorms. He puts his head down on the desk, mimicking her. Darkness takes him. But it is not a normal sleep. His consciousness is pulled into a void. The blackness is interrupted by glitching, digital text that floats in the abyss. The letters form a message. Kim is requesting a conversation with you. Below the text, a blue hologram of a planet appears. It is not the world he lives in now. It is a world of ruined skyscrapers, shattered trains, and debris floating in orbit. A destroyed, modern Earth. Giamma's sleeping face twitches with tension. In the void, he stares at the message from the game master. A final prompt appears before him, pulsating with a neon blue light. Will you accept, yes or no? Giamma stares at the interface. The devastation before him feels strangely familiar, resonating with a lost memory buried deep within his psyche. He considers the possibility that this fractured dimension holds the key to his presence in this world, and perhaps the origin of the blessing of the sword god that he wields. Driven by the need for answers, he mentally selects the affirmative option. The system acknowledges his choice immediately. Text scrolls across the void, declaring that the user has accepted the request for conversation from the game master. However, the stability of the connection wavers. Warning messages flash in red and glitching text, indicating that the game master is interfering with the world line code. The environment shifts violently. The cold blue of space is replaced by a geometric grid of crimson lasers and shattered glass, mirroring the visual phenomenon Giamma experienced the day he first awakened his blessing at the academy entrance. He realizes this is not merely a dream, but a direct link to the underlying architecture of this reality. Through the digital storm, a hand reaches out to him. Giamma extends his own arm, striving to bridge the gap. Just as their fingers nearly brush, The interference intensifies. The system warns that the game master is losing memory due to external forces suppressing the contact. The connection is being forcibly severed. Before the link dissolves completely, a final message is transmitted directly into Jama's mind. It is a directive from the entity that governs this world, simple and absolute. Cut and slice. Whatever it is. The void collapses. Jama jolts awake on a bench within the academy grounds. His breathing is ragged, and tears stream down his face. A physiological reaction to the intensity of the connection he cannot fully recall. Standing over him is Ryujo Saki, who looks at him with a mixture of confusion and concern. She had been shaking him awake, annoyed that he was sleeping through their meeting, only to be startled by his sudden emotional outburst. Jama quickly regains his composure, wiping the moisture from his eyes. He claims to have no memory of the dream, reverting to his usual stoic demeanor. However, the sensation of the encounter lingers. The group, consisting of Jama, Ryujo Saki, Weapon, and Chloe, gathers to discuss their precarious situation. Ryujo takes the lead, reviewing the intelligence they have gathered. The academy elders have marked Jama as a target. Furthermore, there is a mysterious female instructor acting as an agent against them. Ryujo reveals the results of her investigation. Utilizing a window of opportunity during the academy's server reset in the early hours of dawn, she hacked into the personnel database. She cross-referenced the sketch of the female instructor against the files of all 546 staff members. While she found a visual match, the file was corrupted and the identity unverifiable. An anomaly that confirms the instructor is being shielded by high-level clearance. Jama is impressed by Ryujo's competence, acknowledging that her skills extend far beyond combat. She dismisses the praise, noting that in a world of advanced technology, such digital manipulation is standard. The reality of their position is grim. They have identified the threat, but they lack the authority to strike back. Storming the elders' quarters is impossible. They need a legitimate cover to operate within the academy while protecting themselves from administrative sabotage. Weapon proposes a solution. They should form a club. At Joaquin Academy, student clubs are granted significant autonomy and funding. More importantly, a registered club is treated as an affiliate organization of the academy itself. Membership grants a layer of bureaucratic protection that individual cadets do not possess. It essentially creates a double barrier against external and internal interference. Jama recognizes this mechanic. In the game Blessing, this was known as the housing system, a feature that allowed players to create a private base and build affinity with characters. He had ignored it in his previous life as a player, but now it offers a crucial tactical advantage. Ryujo outlines the requirements. To register a club, they need a founding proposal, a minimum of 5 members, and a faculty advisor. Jama counts their numbers. Himself, Ryujo, Weapon, and Chloe. They are 4. They are 1 person short. However, looking at the faces of the people around him, aristocrats and talented warriors who have chosen to follow him despite his lack of background, he feels a surge of gratitude. In a society obsessed with status, they have placed their trust in his strength alone. They proceed to the next step, naming the organization. After rejecting several outlandish suggestions from the group, Jama proposes a travel club. The premise is simple and practical. It provides a legitimate excuse to leave the academy grounds to explore dungeons and clear monsters, granting them freedom of movement under the guise of club activities. The group agrees. The final and most difficult hurdle remains: the faculty advisor. Academy regulations stipulate that a club advisor must hold the rank of professor or higher. Out of the hundreds of staff members, only 30 hold the title of professor, and only 10 of those teach the first-year cadets. Most are too busy or politically compromised to assist a group of students targeted by the elders. Ryujo sighs, admitting that the system is contradictory and rigged against them. She asks Jama if he has anyone in mind, though the question is rhetorical. She expects a dead end. Jama remains seated on the bench, his expression unreadable. He asks for clarification on the rule. Does the advisor merely have to be a professor? Or is anyone of a higher rank also acceptable? Ryujo confirms that anyone ranked professor or higher is valid, though she notes that almost no one in the academy outranks a professor aside from the administration's absolute leadership. Jama pulls out his phone. He scrolls through his contacts. He tells them there is someone who fits the criteria. The group watches in stunned silence as Jama prepares to make a call. The name on his screen implies a connection far beyond what a student of his standing should possess. A connection capable of silencing the elders and validating their club in a single stroke. The administration office is a fortress of bureaucracy, designed not to assist, but to filter. The staff member behind the desk creates a barrier of indifference, her posture radiating the arrogance of someone who wields a tiny sliver of borrowed authority. She informs King Jama that a club application requires the club head to appear in person. When Jama states that he is the head, her dismissal is immediate. She looks at his uniform, his demeanor, and finally his file. To her, he is merely a student, and a special admission case at that. She lectures him with the wary tone of an adult scolding a child. The rules state that a first-year cadet requires a faculty advisor to establish a club. Her eyes narrow as she delivers the insult wrapped in procedure. She implies that no professor within the academy would lower themselves to advise a student of his background. She tells him to know his place. Jiyama listens in silence. His expression remains flat, betraying nothing of the irritation flickering beneath the surface. In his previous life, he spent 20 years in the restaurant industry. He is accustomed to rude customers and unreasonable demands. He learned long ago that silence is often the most professional response to stupidity, even when the urge to deliver a physical correction is strong. Instead of arguing, he pulls out his phone. He speaks briefly, his tone casual, confirming his location. The staff member watches him with incredulity. She cannot fathom that a student she deems beneath notice could simply summon help with a phone call. She assumes it is a bluff. She demands to know who is backing him, her voice rising in hysteria. She plays her own card, boasting that she is the cousin of the principal's close friend, a tenuous connection she wields like a legendary sword. Jiyama snorts. The sound cuts through her tirade. He tells her to be quiet, noting that she is being too loud. Before she can explode, the atmosphere in the room shifts. The heavy, distinct click of high heels echoes against the tile floor. The sound carries a weight that silences the office. The staff member freezes as a shadow falls over her desk. Standing there is the headmaster of the academy. The staff member turns pale. The woman who just walked in is the absolute authority of the institution. The headmaster ignores the terrified staff member entirely, focusing her attention on Jiyama. Her cold demeanor melts into a warm, welcoming smile. She greets him with genuine affection, calling him by name and expressing her happiness to see him. Jiyama apologizes for the trouble. The headmaster dismisses the concern immediately, stating she would run over barefoot if he requested it. The staff member trembles, the reality of the situation crashing down upon her. She realizes too late that the student she mocked holds the favor of the academy's ruler. Jiyama hands over the document, completes his business, and leaves. He does not glow. He does not even look back. The result is all that matters. Once Jiyama is gone, the headmaster takes a seat. The warmth vanishes from her face, replaced by a glacial stare. The staff member stammers, attempting to claim it was a misunderstanding. The headmaster cuts her off. She does not need divine intuition to see the prejudice at play. She states clearly that the staff member judged Jiyama based on his background, insulting a cadet marked as a successor by the academy's highest powers. The judgment is swift. The headmaster gives the woman 5 minutes to write her resignation letter. It is a total erasure of her career, executed with the same casual ease with which Jiyama made his phone call. Jiyama receives a notification on his phone moments later. The club is officially formed. He pities the staff member slightly, knowing she has likely been fired, but he does not dwell on it. He has other business. He arrives at a familiar workshop. The heat of the forge spills out into the street. Inside, blacksmith Byland is hammering away at heated steel. For Jiyama, seeing Byland evokes a complicated nostalgia. In the world he once knew as a game, this blacksmith was a notorious figure, a resource sink who ruined countless weapons with failed upgrades. Players cursed his name, yet prayed to him for success. Byland wipes sweat from his brow and hands over the finished product. Jiyama inspects the weapon. It is a sashimi knife, longer than standard, radiating a faint blue light. It is the Murasayim, reborn. Jiyama checks the status window. The upgrade is unlocked to hidden potential. The blessing of painlessness has increased its duration from 40 seconds to 50. It is a small gain, but for a commander class blessing, every second counts. However, the weapon's overall rank is a disappointment. Despite using materials from an A-rank beast, the weapon is only rated at 2 rank. The hardness has increased, ensuring it won't shatter on impact, but the growth potential is where the real value lies. A new feature catches his eye. The system indicates that special abilities can be added using mana stones. Jiyama sighs. It seems the blacksmith's nature as a resource drain has followed him into reality. He senses that this weapon will require a significant investment to reach its peak. Elsewhere, in a dark, opulent room, an older man sits surrounded by broken glass. Elder Clady of the Beamhark family is drunk on wine and rage. He stares at a portrait of his father, Lemon, one of the legendary 7-star heroes. His father died 40 years ago, leaving a young Clady to fend for himself against relatives who sought to usurp the family name. Clady survived by becoming a monster, using poison and assassination to purge his own bloodline and restore order. He rose to become an elder of the academy, convinced that the only way to guide humanity was through absolute control. He believes that the masses need a common enemy, the demons, to justify the rule of the elite. But variables have appeared. Leon, the so-called hero, is a threat to the balance Clady has cultivated. He knows Leon cannot defeat the Demon King, and he fears history will repeat itself. But now, another variable has emerged. Kang Jiyama, the special admission student, is causing headaches even for the other instructors. Clady sees the boy not as a student, but as a stain on the hierarchy he protects. The elder makes a decision. If the rules of the academy cannot contain these threats, he will use methods from his own dark history. He picks up his phone and issues a command. He summons the Undertaker squad. The political maneuvering is over. The assassination attempts are about to begin. Inside the academy classroom, The morning light falls across a notebook filled with sketches of weaponry and tactical notes. Kang Juma sits in silence, his focus entirely inward. In his possession is a mana stone, a rare and potent resource obtained from the defeat of the behemoth known as Dragon. To the average student, a mana stone is simply a high-value material. To Juma, who understands the underlying mechanics of this world better than anyone, it represents a pivotal shift in his capabilities. His signature weapon, the sashimi knife known as Murasame, possesses 3 open slots for enhancement. The acquisition of this stone means he can finally begin the process of true strengthening. However, this opportunity brings with it a heavy realization. Juma reflects on the source of the stone. It came from a monster that, in a game setting, would have been a catastrophic boss capable of shaking entire zones with a single stump. Yet, in the grand scale of the lore he remembers, Gigant is merely a prelude. Far worse horrors exist in the later updates of this world. He visualizes the tainted Night Basilisk, the malicious Beast Manticore, and the Lich King Drog. These are not mere beasts. They are natural disasters given form. Juma glances at the sleeping form of Ryojo Saki beside him. He questions the logic of risking one's life to farm materials from such nightmares. But the conclusion he reaches is pragmatic, not emotional. The storyline he once knew as a game is deviating. Variables are shifting. The world feels as though it is actively conspiring against him. To survive the unpredictable future, specifically the second demonic war scheduled to erupt in 3 years, power is not a luxury, it is a necessity. The silence is broken by the arrival of Weapon and Chloe. Weapon, energetic as always, greets Juma, though he still refers to him by the moniker Weapon. Juma observes them calmly, his mind still occupied with the shifting balance of power. He notes that Leon Van Reinhardt, the designated protagonist of this world, has been performing exceptionally well lately. Leon has cleared high-ranking dungeons and is rapidly accumulating the accolades expected of a hero. For a moment, the narrative hierarchy seems to be correcting itself. Leon is finally acting like a protagonist. However, Juma remains skeptical. He remembers the mermaid incident, where the so-called hero was incapacitated in a single blow. He cannot trust the safety of the world to Leon alone. Weapon interrupts Juma's thoughts, asking about the progress of their club. They require one more member to be official. The conversation drifts back to Leon. Weapon mentions that Leon cleared an A-rank dungeon yesterday with a small party. Ryojo, waking from her nap, points out the disparity. Their group barely managed a C-rank dungeon. She sharply asks Weapon if he is stalking Leon, given his obsession with the hero's progress. Weapon denies it, but the fixation is evident. Juma tunes them out, focusing on the immediate future. The deserted island survival training is approaching next week. In the original timeline, this event is where Leon acquires the legendary sword, Balmung. Juma suspects that he has become a lightning rod, absorbing the misfortune that was meant for the protagonist. The thought is nauseating. But as he grips his pen, his resolve solidifies. He has no desire to play the role of a perfect, moral hero. If his life is threatened, he will not hesitate. He is not a main character bound by tropes. He is King Juma, the sword demon. While Juma prepares his mind, a darker plot is already in motion outside the academy walls. In the opulent, wine-stained office of Elder Clady, a group of mercenaries arrives. These are not common thugs. They are the Undertaker Squad, an assassin villain union known for high-priced, discreet elimination. The group is led by Captain Ray Shun, a woman with a predator's gaze, accompanied by Vice Captain Jang Taepun and their subordinate, Perik. They are greeted by the sight of Elder Clady, who looks wary but determined. The mercenaries are unimpressed by the job initially, complaining about the dislike the boss has for the academy's higher-ups. However, the money talks. Clady has offered an insane sum to ensure the job is done. Clady slides a photograph across the desk. It is a picture of Kang Juma. The villains examine the target. To them, Juma looks like nothing more than a spoiled teenage brat from a wealthy family. They mock his appearance, underestimating him instantly based on his unassuming exterior. Clay gives the order. The target is to be eliminated during the upcoming deserted island survival training. Because the location is surrounded by the sea, disposal of the body will be simple. He is to become fish food. The price is agreed upon. 100 million won upfront per head. With a double bonus upon completion, the contract is sealed. The political maneuvering of the noble houses has transitioned into direct violence. Time passes, and the day of the written exams arrives at the academy. Juma sits in the exam hall, eating a sandwich and reviewing history notes regarding the Divine Blessing and the French Revolution. He is confident in his practical abilities, but the academic side of the academy is a different battlefield. The rankings are posted publicly, adding a layer of social pressure he would prefer to avoid. He checks his phone. Ryojo Saki had been texting him since early morning, nagging him about eating breakfast and suggesting red bean jelly to boost his brain function. The messages devolve into her telling him to eat yacht, a traditional sweet, though the context feels more like a taunt. Juma finds her persistence annoying. He refuses to lose to someone who obsesses over jelly. However, resolve does not equal academic success. Later, in the break room, the results of the exam hang heavy in the air. Jiyama admits to Chloe that he didn't even interpret the first question correctly. When asked how he handled the rest of the test, he confesses that he simply selected answer number 3 for every multiple-choice question. He relied entirely on game knowledge for the few answers he actually knew. In contrast, Ryojo and Weapon ranked first and second. A fact that irritates Jiyama to no end. Chloe finds Jiyama's pragmatism bordering on evil. But the conversation shifts to a more personal topic. Jiyama asks Chloe about her brother, Nox. As a member of the secretive auditor group, Nox has been silent lately. Chloe admits her brother called yesterday, but she missed it because she was sleeping. Jiyama presses for the time of the call, and realizes Chloe is lying or dodging the truth. She claims she was asleep at 7 in the evening, which contradicts her usual habits. Jiyama deduces she is avoiding her brother on purpose, likely due to the complex politics involving the auditor family. Suddenly, Ryojo slams her hand on the table, interrupting the interrogation. She demands to know why Jiyama has been ignoring her messages. She accuses him of a failure of intelligence and communication. The atmosphere at the table becomes chaotic. Chloe watches the interaction, her eyes narrowing. Ryojo leans in close to Jiyama, invading his personal space, demanding an explanation for his silence. Chloe, misinterpreting the intimacy and the hushed tones about contact regarding her brother, suddenly releases a wave of dark, oppressive mana. Her eyes glow with a menacing red light. The air around her vibrates with hostility. She asks, with terrifying intensity, if the two of them are in contact. Ryojo and Jiyama freeze. The misunderstanding has triggered Chloe's volatile nature. While the assassins plot his death from the shadows, Jiyama finds that his immediate danger comes from the unpredictable social dynamics of his own allies. The deserted island training awaits, and with it, the convergence of all these threats. The interrogation at the cafeteria table instantly dissolves into a suffocating pressure. The misunderstanding regarding the word contact has triggered a volatile reaction within Chloe, whose eyes now glow with a menacing, crimson light. The air vibrates with her unchecked mana, freezing Ryojo and Weapon in their seats. Chloe demands to know why Jiyama has never exchanged numbers with her, her voice trembling with a possessive rage. She feels excluded, accusing Jiyama of breaking a silent promise to prioritize her. While Ryojo attempts to process the sudden shift, questioning the nature of Chloe's behavior, the situation escalates beyond a simple social dispute. Jiyama realizes too late that he has neglected his study of countermeasures for this specific personality type. He watches as Chloe produces a utility knife, her grip tightening on the handle. The atmosphere shifts from awkward to lethal in a fraction of a second. Declaring that she will force him to look only at her, Chloe lunges. Her movement is sharp and filled with genuine killing intent. Jiyama reacts instantly, his body moving on instinct owned by combat. He dodges the initial slash, the blade carving through the air where his chest had been a moment before. Chloe screams accusations of him spending time with other girls, her logic twisted by jealousy. She swings again, a red trail of mana following the blade. Jiyama does not retreat. Instead, he steps into her guard, intercepting her wrist mid-strike. The impact creates a shockwave that rattles the table. He pins her arm down, immobilizing the threat without harming her. Chloe struggles, her eyes wide and frantic, refusing to listen to reason. She demands to know what they could possibly have to talk about if he won't even contact her. Recognizing that logic will not penetrate her frenzy, Jiyama changes tactics. He leans in close, invading her personal space to force eye contact. He speaks calmly, explaining that he avoided digital communication because he finds it cold and imbecile. He asserts that for a connection between them, he prefers to speak face to face. He frames his silence not as neglect, but as a preference for her actual presence. He finishes by thanking her for always thinking of him, referencing her support during the Buffalo Dungeon raid. The effect is instantaneous. The crimson glow fades from Chloe's eyes, replaced by a flush of affection. The murderous aura evaporates, leaving behind a shy, smiling girl who seems genuinely touched by his words. She accepts his explanation immediately, her demeanor shifting from homicidal to docile within a heartbeat. Jiyama exhales, entirely relieved that he managed to navigate the crisis. Beside him, Ryojo and Weapon sit in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the rapid de-escalation of a life-threatening situation. As the group cleans up the spilled coffee, Weapon observes Jiyama with a new perspective. He notes that while most would rely solely on persuasion, Jiyama makes his negotiation with physical dominance, wielding fear and charm in equal measure. To Weapon, this ability to control a volatile element like Chloe demonstrates the natural quality of a ruler. Outside the cafeteria, the sun begins to set. Weapon notices Ryojo behaving strangely, her attention fixed on her phone. When he presses her, she defensively reveals that she is deleting videos from a channel she manages. The screen displays a video titled Perfect Yonder Response Strategy, which has amassed over 210,000 views. It becomes clear that Ryojo, terrified of Chloe's unpredictability, had been attempting to study the same countermeasures Jiyama just employed. Weapon laughs at the channel name, Saki-chan's Japanese, earning a death threat from an embarrassed Ryojo. Days later, the academy shifts its focus to the next major curriculum event, An announcement is posted in the main library regarding the deserted island survival training on Avalon Island. The event is scheduled for 2 nights and 3 days, allowing students to form teams of 1 to 4 people. While the administration frames it as a survival evaluation involving foraging and identification of poisonous plants, the students treat it more like a school trip. Giamat, however, takes it seriously. He stands in the library stacks, piling books on survival and botany into his arms. As a former player of the game this world is based on, he knows the true significance of Avalon Island. This event is a critical turning point in the original storyline. It is on Avalon Island that the original protagonist, Leon, is destined to acquire the hilt of his signature weapon, Balmon. It is also the location where the rivalry between Leon and Weapon begins to transform into a bond of mutual respect. Jama reflects on the narrative weight of the trip, recalling how immersed he once was in this story arc. However, his current reality is different. He is not the hero destined to wield the holy sword. He acknowledges that Balmon is a weapon that chooses its master, a plot device exclusive to the protagonist meant to save the world from the Demon King. Giamat looks at his own hands, accepting that he is a man who fights with a sashimi knife, not a holy relic. He decides to ignore the main quest item, knowing he cannot obtain it even if he knows its location. Instead, Giamat focuses on his own survival. He is aware that a high-ranking instructor, the Sword Emperor, will be joining the supervising team, diverting from the original plot. This variable adds a layer of danger and opportunity. Giamat opens a book on the history of Avalon, searching for information on something else hidden on the island. He is looking for the Queen's Lake, a location rumored to be the land of beginning. The library books only offer common knowledge, forcing him to rely on his own game knowledge to locate his target. As he contemplates the geography of the island, a voice interrupts his thoughts. Leon Van Reinhardt stands at the end of the table. The blonde nobleman looks down at Giamat with a serious expression, breaking the silence with a greeting that implies he has been looking for him. The original protagonist has initiated contact, signaling that Giamat's plan to stay in the background during this event may already be compromised. The silence of the library is broken by a voice that carries the weight of nobility. Leon Van Reinhardt stands before King Giamat. It has been a long time since their last direct interaction. Leon notices the book in Giamat's hand, an introduction to magic, and finds it out of place. In Leon's eyes, a swordsman like Giamat should not be diverting his focus to magic at such a critical time. Giamat remains seated, his expression unreadable. He calmly explains that he is merely researching Avalon Island, the location of next week's training. Leon studies him, noting Giamat's diligence. Giamat admits that he is busy with training, dungeon exploration, and study because he must prepare for his own future. Internally, Giamat knows the timeline of the original game and the disasters that will unfold in 3 years. He is preparing for survival, not glory. Leon stares at him, sensing a fundamental divide. He remarks that Giamat is different from him, and he is different from Giamat. Leon asks where Giamat truly came from. Giamat does not answer aloud, but observes that while Leon has not strayed far from the original game's path, the protagonist feels distinctly different now. There is a shadow of sadness and conflict on Leon's face that was not present in the original story. Leon departs, leaving Giamat with a wish for his safety. As the blonde nobleman walks away, the burden of a hero carrying humanity's fate seems to weigh heavily on his shoulders. Giamat returns his focus to his research. He needs to find the location of the Queen's Lake before the library closes. Elsewhere on the Academy training grounds, the social dynamics of the Academy are shifting. Rachel Dignuret locates Saki Ryujo. Abel von Nibelung and another student are present as well. Rachel confronts Saki about sneaking into the advanced class and, more importantly, her recent closeness with Giamat. Rachel is aware that Saki entered the Buffalo Dungeon and participates in club activities with him. The topic turns to the upcoming 3-day survival training on the deserted island. Giamat has declared his intention to undertake the mission solo. However, Rachel points out a flaw in his statement. He expressed a desire to go alone, but he never explicitly forbade others from following him. Rachel proposes a competition among the girls. She calls it the Rachel game. Since Avalon Island has shifting terrain and random spawn points, finding a specific person will be difficult. Rachel declares that whoever finds Giamat first earns the exclusive right to team up with him for the duration of the training, and the others must back off. Abel seems hesitant but intrigued. Saki, however, dismisses the idea as petty and walks away, refusing to participate in such a contest. The morning of the departure arrives. Giamat is exhausted, having spent the entire night in the library. He checks his equipment list on his phone. In addition to his standard gear, he has packed 24 sashimi knives purchased from a discount store and a secret weapon. He receives a barrage of text messages from the headmaster, who nags him about packing medicine and spare clothes like a worried mother. She even specifies that he should bring black underwear so dirt does not show. Giamat muses that she acts more like a grandmother than a headmaster. As students gather, Giamat scans the crowd. He spots a tall female instructor with purple hair and strange eyes. This matches the description of a weapon he is wary of. He suspects she may target him during the training. Jima decides that if she attempts to harm him, he will use the island's ever-changing terrain to dispose of her quietly. He dislikes using his blade on people, but he refuses to die. His train of thought is interrupted by a boisterous greeting. The Sword Emperor arrives, dressed in a loud Hawaiian shirt, carrying a massive equipment case. He praises Jima for his unyielding training schedule. The Sword Emperor imparts a piece of wisdom. When great talent is backed by hard work, the results multiply rather than add. He advises Jima to rest occasionally, to let his body endure, then departs. Abel remains behind, staring at Jima with a pout. Jima, finding her attitude stiff, instinctively reaches out and flicks her forehead. Abel recoils in shock, shouting that he hit her. Jima apologizes, claiming he felt a presence and reacted on instinct. Flustered and red-faced, Abel stammers that she only came to wish him luck, then storms off. Watching her leave, Jima's thoughts drift to Saki Ryujo. Although she walked away from Rachel's game earlier, Jima notes that Saki had been behaving erratically lately. She barely sleeps and constantly hovers around him. If he does not acknowledge her, she becomes restless. He realizes with resignation that Saki has officially cemented herself as a heroine in this narrative as well. The dimensional gate activates. The students are transported to Evala Island. Jima arrives alone in a lush, vibrant landscape. He takes a moment to breathe in the air of the new environment. It has been a year since he fell into this world, but standing here, it finally feels like a true fantasy setting. Looming in the distance is a colossal structure of nature, the apple tree of beginning, Yggdrasil. The sightseeing ends quickly. The 3-day survival training has begun. Jima grips his bag, his objective clear. He is not here to play games or socialize. He intends to find the blessing he researched in the library and secure it quietly without drawing any unnecessary attention. The hunt is on. Jima checks his smartphone against the surrounding terrain. The map he copied from the library is accurate. The blessing of regeneration is located near the lake at the center of the island. To reach it, he must traverse the rocky outer rim and penetrate the dense forest zone. He notes that the Academy has scattered collection orbs across the island as a secondary objective for points, framing the survival exercise as a scavenger hunt. Jima ignores these distractions. His priority remains the blessing. He inspects his equipment. In preparation for the rough terrain, he purchased a 50-centimeter machete from a supermarket. He tests the weight and balance of the tool. It is functional, but the grip feels foreign compared to his usual weapon. He decides to rely on the machete for clearing paths but resolves to use his sashimi knife if the situation turns critical. Movement in the brush draws his attention. A small white rabbit emerges. It appears harmless until its muscles swell, transforming it into a hulking beast. The creature lunges. Jima dispatches it efficiently. Standing over the carcass, he attempts to activate the blessing of the sword god, hoping to extract a skill or stat increase from the kill. The blessing does not react. Jima realizes that obtaining power will not be as simple as killing random monsters. Elsewhere on the island, Abel von Nibelung encounters a similar creature. Deceived by its initial appearance, she attempts to touch it. The rabbit bites her finger and flees. Enraged by the disrespect, Abel pursues the creature. She accelerates, realizing the beast possesses unnatural speed. Acknowledging its ability, she utilizes her family's technique, the Blade of Nibelung. She corners the rabbit, but her momentum carries her onto unstable ground. The terrain crumbles beneath her feet, sending her plummeting into the darkness of an underground waterway. Jima continues his trek through the forest. The survival training proves physically taxing. Without the enhancement of a blessing, his stamina drains rapidly while fighting off packs of wolves. He leans against a tree, breathing heavily. He acknowledges that despite his technical skill, his current physique is garbage compared to his past life. The muscle-bound rabbit from earlier, or perhaps another of its kind, approaches him, mocking his exhaustion. It calls him weak. Jima's expression flattens. He drops the machete and grips the sashimi knife. The blessing of the sword god activates. In a single, fluid motion, the beast is bisected. As night falls, the other students converge on the forest. Saki Ryuja sprints through the trees, foregoing navigation for pure instinct. She follows a crow, operating on the logic that birds like shiny objects and Jima has black hair. Rachel DeMuret takes a more analytical approach. She deduces that Jima would seek the most secluded area on the island, the world boundary in the central forest. She packs jelly snacks and moves out, determined to settle the score for the forehead flick. A red-haired student carves a path through the beast-infested woods with a katana. She senses Jima's presence ahead and accelerates, desperate to reach him before anyone else. Jima establishes a camp in a small clearing. He skins the rabbit and roasts the meat over an open fire, preserving the rest as jerky. He senses multiple presences entering his perimeter. They are not beasts. In the distance, Rachel and the red-haired student collide. They recognize one another instantly, their momentum halting as they engage in a tense standoff, effectively delaying each other. Jima ignores the distant commotion, focusing on the nearest threat. Something is rushing toward his camp with significant speed. He extinguishes his presence and waits. As the figure bursts through the foliage, Jima swings his blade, stopping the edge millimeters from the intruder's neck. It is Abel. She is soaked to the bone from her earlier fall into the underground river. She stares at the blade, then at Jama, trembling. Her gaze drifts to the roasting meat. A loud growl erupts from her stomach. The granddaughter of the Sword Emperor has arrived, not as a conqueror, but as a starving refugee. The blade halts millimeters from her throat. Abel von Nadelung, the shin of a legendary sword family, freezes. She is soaked, shivering, and defenseless. However, the tension in the clearing is not broken by strike, but by the loud, undeniable growl of an empty stomach. The hierarchy of the academy dissolves in the face of basic survival needs. Abel has not arrived as a rival, but as a victim of the island's harsh environment. Giamma lowers his weapon. He does not mock her. Instead, he assesses the situation with his usual detached pragmatism. The rabbit he just skinned offers both sustenance and warmth. He tosses the cured fur onto her trembling shoulders. Abel is flushed with embarrassment, acutely aware that she, a noble elite, is being pitied by the man she intended to defeat. Yet, the warmth is undeniable. As she wraps herself in the fur, Giamma notices the unnatural angle of her leg. Without asking for permission, he inspects her ankle. It is swollen. While Abel stammers, confused by his lack of hostility, Giamma applies basic first aid. To him, this is maintenance. To her, it is a confusing act of intimacy from a competitor. In the shadows of the forest, the academy's social web continues to spin. Rachel de Murat, hiding in the brush, observes the campfire scene through the lens of her phone. She snaps a photograph of the intimate moment. Abel huddled in Giamma's furs while he tends to the fire. She uploads the image to a private group chat, specifically targeting Ryujo Saki. The reaction is immediate. Ryujo, who had been told Abel was sitting this one out, reacts with digital fury at the perceived betrayal. The political landscape of the academy shifts not through duels, but through misinterpretations of Giamma's simple survival acts. Back at the fire, Giamma hands Abel a skewer of roasted meat. As she eats, her pride gives way to curiosity. She asks the question that haunts the student body: how is he so strong? Giamma's answer is characteristically vague, citing survival and an amazing teacher. Abel opens up, admitting she spent 17 years learning the sword from her grandfather, the Sword Emperor. She believes she knew the pinnacle of swordsmanship, yet Giamma's technique defies her understanding. Giamma offers a correction to her worldview. He states that strength is not merely about winning every exchange. True strength belongs to those who endure, hang on, and survive until the very end. The philosophy strikes a chord in Abel. She laughs, noting that this 17-year-old student speaks with the wary wisdom of an old man. Much like her grandfather, for the first time the wall between them lowers. The next morning brings a cold reality. Abel wakes to find the campsite abandoned. The fire is dead, but a stack of food has been left beside her. Giamma is gone. Tears well up in Abel's eyes. Not from pain, but from the shock of receiving kindness without conditions. She has lived a life of heavy expectations where emotion was a luxury she could not afford. But Giamma's silent generosity forces a change. She wipes her eyes. There are 2 days of training left. She refuses to remain the damsel. Gripping her sword, she stands up, her resolve renewed. She decides to return the favor. Elsewhere in the forest, Giamma moves with purpose. He reflects on the encounter with a clinically detached mindset. He acknowledges Abel's beauty but dismisses her aloofness as a character trait of a noble lady, completely unaware that her awkwardness stems from his own actions. He checks the date. According to the original narrative, today is the day Abel and Leon van Reinhardt are destined to develop feelings for one another. Giamma worries briefly that his interference might alter the plot, perhaps leading Abel to give the warm fur to Leon, but he pushes the thought aside. His goal lies elsewhere. He is hunting for a specific hidden piece. The Blessing of Regeneration. He locates the site near a set of ancient ruins. The item description confirms his knowledge. The Blessing of Regeneration is a spirit-level ability that rapidly boosts recovery. Its limitation is that it usually only applies to the user, making it a self-doping skill. However, for Giamma, this limitation is irrelevant. Possessing the Blessing of Transfer, he can theoretically heal others, including repairing his fragile sashimi knives mid-combat. It is a utility combination that breaks the balance of the world. He reasons that taking this item will not hinder Leon's growth, as the protagonist of this world is destined to become a monster regardless. Giamma climbs the rocky terrain, spying a massive, glowing orb resting on a pedestal within the dilapidated stone pillars. He approaches the artifact, ready to claim his reward for the long trek. As he reaches out, a voice cuts through the silence. Giamma King. Giamma freezes. Stepping out from behind a pillar is Leon van Reinhardt, the blonde-haired elite stands between Giamma and the orb, his eyes glowing with blue maw. Leon's presence here is a deviation Giamma did not calculate. Leon accuses Giamma of coming here with a hidden purpose, refusing to believe a simple excuse of sightseeing. The atmosphere tightens instantly. Leon draws his weapon, the twilight blade, its energy humming in the twilight air. He issues a direct challenge. If Giamma wants the orb, he must take it by force. The strongest student in the academy stands as the gatekeeper, and for the first time, he looks at Giamma not as a background extra, but as a threat that must be neutralized. The encounter at the ruins shifts instantly from a standoff to an execution ground. Leon Van Ringhart stands before the ancient pillars, gripping the twilight blade, Balmon. Giamma identifies the weapon immediately. It is an incomplete demonic sword, stabilized only by the blue ether jewel embedded in its hilt. While the jewel neutralizes the blade's inherent curse, the weapon's nature remains volatile, shifting between holy and demonic depending on the wielder's psyche. Leon claims this is merely a friendly spar, but the density of his mana suggests otherwise. He intends to use Giamma as a stepping stone to master the blade. Giamma realizes that the glowing orb he spotted earlier was merely a lure. The true test was always meant to be the student standing before him. Elsewhere in the forest, Abel von Nibelung trails behind Ryuja Saki. He questions her recent behavior, noting how the once lazy archery student has become hyperactive and diligent since aligning herself with Giamma. He asks if she is possessed or under a spell. Sak's response is a swift, brutal punch to Abel's jaw, silencing his interrogation. Their bickering is cut short by a massive tremor that shakes the forest floor. It is not an earthquake. Saki turns her gaze toward the ruins, instinctively recognizing the source of the disturbance. It is Giamma. Back at the ruins, the atmosphere creates a suffocating pressure. Leon strikes. He swings Balmon with devastating force. The attack does not merely cut. It obliterates the terrain, carving a canyon through the stone floor. Leon questions why Giamma refuses to fight back, interpreting the lack of aggression as disrespect. But Giamma is calculating. He realizes that Leon is not just a skilled student. He is the designated protagonist of this world, the holder of the miracle blessing. To face such a being without caution is suicide. Leon activates his blessing. The mana surrounding him turns into a blinding column of gold and azure light. The pressure intensifies, threatening to crush anything in its vicinity. Giamma acknowledges the reality of the situation. He can no longer rely on passive evasion. His hand moves to his side, gripping the handle of his sashimi knife. Leon charges. The twilight blade collides with the small kitchen knife. The size difference is comical, but the result is not. Sparks fly as Giamma parries the heavy, magical strikes with absolute precision. The ground beneath them shatters under the weight of their clash. Leon is relentless, his eyes burning with a desperate need to prove his strength, to prove he is capable of saving the world. He unleashes a vertical strike of pure energy, a pillar of light meant to incinerate his opponent. Giamma does not retreat. He meets the overwhelming force head-on. The explosion engulfs the ruins. As the smoke clears, Leon stands panting, his stamina drained. He looks at his weapon. The edge of the legendary Balmung is shattered. From the sky above, a single glowing feather descends. It is the hero's emblem, the artifact that signifies the world's chosen savior. Leon watches it fall, his expression crumbling from arrogance to despair. He whispers an apology to his father, believing he has failed the test. The feather drifts past Leon. It does not stop for him. It continues its descent, gliding through the air until it lands softly on the cracked stone. It settles directly at the feet of Giamma Kang. The artifact has made its choice. The role of the hero has shifted, and the burden of the world now lies not with the knight, but with the chest. The duel concludes not with the roar of a crowd, but with the quiet hum of a system notification. On the shattered stone arena, the legendary sword Balmung lies chipped, its edge compromised by a common kitchen tool. Leon Van Ringhart stands defeated, his stamina drained and his pride fractured. The hero's emblem, a feather of pure light, has made its choice, vanishing into the inventory of the one man who actively sought to avoid it. Kang Giamma sheathes his knife. The outcome is absolute. Internally, Giamma reviews the combat data. The difficulty lay not in surviving Leon's assault, but in restraining his own lethality. He notes that Leon's refusal to use lethal force forced him to dodge excessively, prolonging the engagement. A single misstep in his suppression tactics would have resulted in the death of the Academy's golden child. He observes the damage to Balmung with a pragmatist eye, reasoning that the protagonist will inevitably repair the weapon and grow stronger, as narrative causality demands. For now, the immediate reward takes precedence. A holographic screen manifests in the air, invisible to all but Giamma. He has acquired the blessing of regeneration. The description promises the rapid multiplication of cells to heal damage, excluding detached limbs. Giamma requires empirical proof. Without hesitation, he draws his blade across his own forearm. Blood wells, then stops. Green light stitches the flesh together in seconds, leaving smooth skin behind. The test is successful. The lethality of his environment has been mitigated by a margin of safety. Satisfied, he turns away from the ruins. Night falls over the deserted island. The survival training continues, but the atmosphere has shifted. Alone by a campfire, Giamma stares into the flames. The silence allows for introspection. He considers the entity responsible for his reincarnation, Abel von Nibelung, and the absurdity of his current predicament. His initial strategy was simple: avoid the main storyline and survive. Yet, the instinct for self-preservation has forced him to dismantle the plot he intended to preserve. By defeating Leon and claiming the emblem, he has irrevocably altered the narrative trajectory. The weight of this reality settles in. He is no longer a spectator. He is a target. The solitude triggers a hallucination. He imagines Ryojosaki beside him, scolding him for overthinking. It is a fleeting comfort, a reminder of the few connections he has forged in this hostile world. Elsewhere on the island, his allies operate with their own efficiency. Ryuja holds a disciplined watch, while Rachel Demuret documents the subjugation of rival students with cold amusement. But Jama's peace is short-lived. The shadows at the edge of the clearing deepen. He is not alone. Multiple figures emerge from the darkness. They do not move like students. Their gait is silent, their killing intent refined and suppressed. These are professionals. The Undertaker Unit, a corpse disposal squad utilized by the darker underbelly of the noble factions, has arrived. Shurikens fly from the brush, aimed with lethal precision. Chiyama does not panic. He shifts his weight, the projectiles missing him by millimeters. 3 assassins step into the light. 2 men and a woman. The leader, a woman with pale hair and a red streak, observes him with clinical curiosity. Her subordinates are less composed, shocked that a mere cadet evaded a coordinated ambush. Chiyama analyzes the group. He recognizes the leader as Lei Shen, a former noble-turned-contract killer, a character destined to be a tragic villain for Leon in the original novel. Here, she is merely an obstacle. The assassins are confused by his reaction. Chiyama displays no fear, only mild annoyance. They mistake his composure for a professional experience, asking which organization he serves. They cannot conceive that a student could possess such a profound indifference to death. Chiyama corrects them. He deduces that their presence implies the involvement of an elder from the organization, as only high-ranking commands could mobilize such a unit against a student. He mocks their profession, labeling them as mere butchers who kill for coin. The insult strikes a nerve. Lei Shen's expression darkens. The term butcher strips away the romance of their tragic backstories and reduces them to their function. The vice captain, a man with spiky hair named Perik, loses his composure. Enraged by the disrespect, he lunges forward, his fist raised in mana. He screams at Chiyama, calling him a rat for dodging. Chiyama decides to stop dodging. He activates his technique. The air around him shifts. He does not step back. He steps in. The movement is too fast for the assassin to process. Chiyama's blade, a simple tool of the kitchen, intercepts the magically reinforced strike. There is a flash of blue light, followed by the wet sound of severance. Perik collapses, blood sprays across the stone. The clearing falls silent. The remaining assassins freeze, their reality shattering. Chiyama stands over the fallen man, his breath steady. He realizes the threshold he has just crossed. He has cut down a human being. This is not a monster in a dungeon or a simulation in a classroom. This is reality. And yet, his hand does not shake. The system displays numbers in the air, calculating the efficiency of the violence. Chiyama looks up at the remaining killers. His eyes are void of hesitation. He has confirmed that his blade works just as well on people as it does on ingredients. Not bad, he murmurs. The game is over. The slaughter has begun. In a space that resembles a mundane convenience store, he searches for something intangible. He wonders where he left his humanity, shaking the refrigerated shelves as if it were a misplaced item. But what he finds are not beverages, but manifestations of his singular purpose. Cartons labeled with concepts of violence and mastery line the racks. He bypasses them all to select a specific carton. The label reads, "Cut it all, no matter what it is." He consumes it without hesitation. This is not a dream, but an affirmation of his nature. He is not here to be human. He is here to dismantle whatever stands before him. Back in the cold reality of the night, the world is stained red by the system's interface. The timer in Chiyama's vision ticks down, 0.2 seconds. 0.1. The assassins, experienced killers of the Undertaker group, are frozen in the amber of their own sluggish reaction times. To them, the student before them has simply vanished. To Chiyama, they are stationary objects waiting to be processed. He moves through their formation like a blade sliding through water. There is no resistance. The sashimi sword master does not hack or bludgeon. He separates. A flick of the wrist, and a blade is severed. A shift of weight, and a tendon is parted. The vice captain of the assassin squad realizes too late that their intelligence was fatally flawed. He screams for his subordinates to catch the target, to treat him as a mere kid. But his voice is thick with panic. The vice captain lunges, his dagger coated in muna, desperate to close the distance. Chiyama does not retreat. He steps into the guard, his body low, his center of gravity shifting with unnatural precision. The vice captain's attack hits nothing but empty air. In the same motion, Chiyama rises, his ordinary knife flashing upward in a relentless arc. There is a wet thud. The vice captain collapses, his eyes wide with the shock of a man who died before he realized he was fighting a monster. The remaining subordinates are dispatched with equal efficiency. They fall in silence, their bodies joining the growing collection of corpses on the stone path. The red-haired female assassin, the last survivor of the squad, watches in paralyzed horror. She stands frozen as Chiyama shakes the blood from his blade with a practiced, culinary flick. She had expected a simple job, 100 million gold bounty on a mere cadet. A quick elimination. Instead, she has walked into a slaughterhouse. Jama turns his gaze toward her. His eyes are void of malice, which makes them infinitely more terrifying. He looks at her not as an enemy, but as the final item on a checklist. He speaks calmly about the bounty, offering a dark jest about giving her a bonus. To her, he appears not as a student, but as something macerating in human skin. A half-human, half-demon entity that defies the laws of their profession. She draws her daggers, shouting curses to mask her trembling. She calls him demon scum, forcing herself to attack. But her movements are jagged, broken by fear. Jama catches her wrist effortlessly. The gap in their ability is not a valley, it is an ocean. He twists, disarming her, and drives her back against a tree. The impact knocks the wind from her lungs. Jama pins her there. He does not kill her immediately. He needs information. He asks who sent them. The assassin, clinging to the last shreds of her professional pride, spits defiance. She claims she will never talk. She believes her silence is her shield. Jama leans in. He does not resort to physical torture immediately. He chooses a weapon far more potent. The truth she has hidden from herself. He asks her if she is stupid or just brave. Then he begins to recite the secrets of her existence. He mentions her erased personal records. He speaks of her parents, her relatives. All gone, all wiped from history. The assassin's eyes widen. A memory surfaces. A fragmented recollection of a digital void where her identity used to be. She is confused. How does this cadet know the details of her conditioning? How does he know about the emptiness of her past? Jama presses the advantage. He asks her a simple, devastating question. What did they look like again? The question shatters her mental defenses. She tries to recall the faces of her parents, but there is nothing. Just a gray fog. The realization hits her like a physical blow. She is not just an assassin. She is a tool that has been hollowed out. The terror of her own existence overwhelms her loyalty to her employers. She breaks. Tears mixing with the dirt on her face, she screams that she will tell him everything. She begs for her life. Jama's expression does not change. He tells her that the negotiation is over. This is now a threat. He raises his knife, ready to dissect her piece by piece until he is satisfied with the answers. He reminds her that she can still talk even if she loses a limb. He is fully prepared to extract the name of Lei Shen or whoever stands behind this ambush. But before the first cut can be made, the atmosphere shifts. The air grows heavy, vibrating with a dense, suffocating pressure. A crimson light illuminates the forest canopy. Jama looks up, his instincts screaming a warning that the assassins never triggered. A pillar of concentrated magical energy crashes down from the sky, incinerating the ground mere meters away from them. The shockwave flings debris through the forest. Jama shields his face, forced to step back. The sheer density of the mana is unlike anything a human mage should possess. Miles away, at a tranquil lakeside, an old man sits with a fishing rod. He's Abel von Nibelung, a man of immense power and standing. He feels the disturbance immediately. The water ripples violently as the shock wave travels through the earth. He grimaces, recognizing the signature of the energy. It is not just a powerful mage, it is a commander. Back in the burning clearing, the flames roar with a life of their own. The red-haired assassin is cowering on the ground, her fear of Giacomo replaced by a primal dread of the new arrival. From within the inferno, a silhouette emerges. A woman steps out of the fire. Her skin glows with the heat of the blaze, and her hair flows like liquid magma. She stretches, yawning as if she has just woken from a long nap. She complains about the impure flame of the human world, her voice dripping with arrogance and ancient power. She spots Jama. Her eyes, burning with demonic light, lock onto him. She greets him with a predatory smile, calling him Little One. The system identifies the entity immediately, flashing a warning in bold red text. This is no assassin. This is the 5th Legion commander of the Demon King's army. A succubus, the dream demon. Agor. Jama stands his ground, gripping his sashimi knife. The timer in his vision has vanished, replaced by the overwhelming reality of a boss monster appearing in the starting zone. He realizes that his delay with the Undertaker group has cost him precious seconds. The situation has escalated from a cleanup operation to a calamity. The assassin on the ground is hyperventilating, whispering the word commander in disbelief. She knows what this creature is. It is a being that makes her, and even Jama, look like small fish in a very dangerous pond. Igor laughs, a sound that carries the weight of 700 years of absence from the human realm. She unleashes a torrent of magical power, the flames obediently rising to form a backdrop for her descent. She is here, and the forest is now her domain. Jama stares up at the towering pillar of fire, and the demon within it. He does not tremble. He does not flee. He simply assesses. The difference in skill is massive. The magic power is suffocating. But as the flames reflect in his dark eyes, he tightens his grip on the handle of his weapon. He sighs, acknowledging the absurdity of the escalation. He defeated the humans. But the night is far from over. The demon commander descends, and the Academy Sashimi sword master prepares to fill it a god. The ladder of a calamity echoes through the burning forest. It is not the manic cackle of a madman, but the resonant, confident amusement of a being that has stood above humanity for centuries. Igor, the commander of the Demon King's 5th Legion, has descended. The flames that consumed the surroundings now act as her loyal courtiers, bowing to her presence. She speaks with a casual arrogance, apologizing for her lack of manners, citing an absence from the human realm that has lasted 700 years. To her, the destruction of the forest is merely an entrance. The terrified assassin gasping on the ground is less than an insect. Gemma stands silent amidst the rising heat. He does not tremble. Instead, he retreats into the cold logic of his mind. His greatest weapon is not the sashimi knife in his hand, but the memories of his past life playing the game Miracle Blessing. He recognizes the threat instantly. This is Igor of the Bewitching Flame, a demon of the highest order. Gemma rapidly accesses his internal wiki. He recalls that among the Legion commanders, Igor possesses unremarkable physical strength but excels in mental magic. This is a critical piece of intelligence. However, the data conflicts with the reality before him. Why has Igor descended now? What is her objective in possessing the body of the host, Ryan? The scenario has deviated from the known script, plunging Gemma into uncharted territory. Igor turns her burning gaze toward Gemma. She surveys the corpses of the Undertaker group scattered around him. A flicker of genuine interest crosses her face. To stand sane before demon commanders, a feat few humans can manage. To have slaughtered a squad of assassins before her arrival is another matter entirely. She smiles, a predator toying with a promising mouse. She calls him a brat, but her tone suggests a rare appraisal of value. Then, the mental assault begins. It does not come as a blast of force, but as a whispered invitation. Ever extends a hand wreathed in fire. She observes the human tendency to seek rank and status, to kill for benefit while pretending to be noble. She offers an alternative. She invites Gemma to dream a glorious dream with her. It is a solicitation to join the Demon King's army. For a split second, Gemma's survival instincts scream at him to accept. His logical mind, always calculating the highest probability of survival, acknowledges that aligning with the demon is the pragmatic move. The sheer difference in power makes resistance seem like suicide. The spell weaves through his consciousness, urging him to surrender, to accept the easy path of servitude to a god. But Gemma is the Academy's sashimi sword master. His will is forged in a discipline that transcends magic. His eyes snap open, clear and devoid of the demon's influence. He looks at the Sakiba's queen and rejects the premise entirely. Igor is stunned. Her spell was of a high tier, capable of enslaving powerful warriors instantly. She attempts to rationalize the failure, blaming the sloppy condition of her host body, Rayan. She laughs off the embarrassment, but the dynamic has shifted. Gemma is not a mouse. He is a convict who has just broken a commander's mental bind. Gemma's grip tightens on his knife. He has no intention of becoming a slave. He mutters a single phrase of defiance. Screw that. The negotiation is over. Gemma initiates the violence. He launches himself forward, his blade carving a path through the ash. Igor sighs at his lack of manners, but her eyes narrow. She decides to treat this as a game, assuming the role of a harsh instructor testing a student. She unleashes Inferno. A wall of magical fire erupts, intended to incinerate Gemma instantly. The heat is absolute, melting the stone beneath their feet. Yet, the boy does not stop. With a single, precise stroke, he cuts the fire. The flames part around him as if terrified of the steel he wields. Igor's expression shifts from amusement to shock. This human has surpassed the limits of his species. She realizes her adjustment to the host body is slower than anticipated, leaving her vulnerable to a threat she underestimated. Gemma accelerates. A digital timer manifests in his vision, counting down the seconds. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. He moves faster than the eye can track, a blur of blue energy against the red annihilation of the demon. He is pushing his body to the breaking point, burning his own life force to close the gap. 0.0. Gemma is within striking distance. He slashes. The sashimi knife, a tool designed for delicate culinary work, bites into the arm of the demon commander. Blood sprays. Igor pulls back, staring at the wound on her limb. The pain is a novelty she has not felt in centuries. She calls them red pyrantis, acknowledging the sting. She smiles. The defiance, the skill, the burning spirit of this human child. It is charming. She sees something in him that reminds her of a prophecy of a child foretold to be a vessel. She decides that the game requires a grand final. She will test him one last time. If he survives, he passes. Igor raises her hand. The ambient mana of the forest is sucked into a singular point above her palm. A miniature sun forms, a swirling vortex of concentrated flame that promises total erasure. She hurls the sun at the boy. Gemma stands his ground, but the scale of the attack is overwhelming. The heat sears his skin before the impact even arrives. He readies his knife, but deep down, the calculation returns a survival probability of 0. The world turns white. But death does not come. A shockwave blasts outward, clearing the smoke. Gemma opens his eyes, gasping for air. Confused by his continued existence, he is not dead. Standing before him, blocking the remnants of the demon sun, is an old man in a floral shirt. A massive sword is held in the elder's hand, radiating a power that rivals the demon herself. The old man roars, yelling at himself to get a grip, his muscles straining against the magical pressure. He screams for protection, establishing himself as the shield between the student and the apocalypse. Jama stares at the back of the figure, his vision blurring. He recognizes the silhouette. It is the sword master. The hierarchy of power shifts once again. The student has drawn blood from a god, and now the masters of the academy have stepped onto the battlefield to wage war against the legends of old. The remnants of the explosion fade, leaving only the crackling of heat and the smell of scorched earth. The student, King Jima, finds himself alive, shielded from the apocalypse by a single figure, the old man in the floral shirt. The sword master stands as a barrier against the demon sun. His arm is damaged, his body trembling under the weight of a power that defies the laws of the human realm. But his grip on his blade remains absolute. The smoke clears to reveal the enemy. It is a demon commander, manifesting through the vessel of a human woman. Her body is wreathed in living magma, her eyes burning with an arrogance that has spanned centuries. She introduces the reality of the situation. For a commander to descend, a human sacrifice is required as a catalyst. This vessel limits her full potential, yet even in this restricted state, she is a walking natural disaster. The sword master, despite his age and the frailty of a body past its prime, does not retreat. He acknowledges the grim reality. He is bleeding, one arm useless, facing a creature that regenerates faster than steel can cut. The demon, Agor, mocks him. She calls him a worm, a mere descendant of Aaron. Pitilessly toying with a human she views as insignificant. The battle resumes. It is a clash of eras. Agor unleashes torrents of flame, turning the battlefield into a hellscape. The sword master weaves through the inferno, his movements defying the limitations of his age frame. He strikes from the blind spots, his blade severing the demon's arm in a blur of motion. But the victory is fleeting. The limb regenerates in an instant, and the demon simply laughs. To her, this resistance is nothing more than the final twitching of a dying insect. Kang Jiama watches from the ground. His vision blurs. His body screams for unconsciousness, but his grip on the sashimi knife does not loosen. He understands intuitively that losing consciousness now means death. He forces himself to witness the gap between a master and a god. The sword master, battered and breathing heavily, speaks. He tells the demon that he sees it. Beneath the arrogance, beneath the flames, he sees fear. He declares that demons invade the human realm not out of strength, but because they fear the human capacity to evolve and grow stronger in the face of hopelessness. Agor's smile vanishes. The accusation strikes a nerve. She stops toying with him. With a burst of speed that shatters the ground, she closes the distance. The sword master attempts a final strike, aiming for the legs to immobilize her, but the difference in vitality is too vast. A fist of magma punches through his defenses, striking his chest. The old man is thrown back, his body broken, blood pouring from a wound that should be fatal. The hierarchy seems settled. The protector has fallen. Agor stands over the broken sword master, dismissing his philosophy as the ramblings of the senile. She turns her attention to the prize, King Jiama. She crouches before the student, her flaming hand lifting his chin. She mocks him gently, telling him he has passed her test. His reward is to become a vessel, a body to serve the will of the demons. She touches him. But the world does not end. Instead, the air begins to vibrate. Red warning screens flood the student's vision, invisible to the demon but screaming in the mind of the protagonist. Unauthorized external intrusion detected. Initiating autonomous defense program. The system fractures. Error messages cascade downward. The user level is too low for the required protocol, but a catalyst is present. The system acknowledges the presence of Yggdrasil. User level temporarily elevated. Agor pauses. Her hand is still on Jama, but the heat is no longer hurting him. She pulls back, confused. The student's eyes have changed. The pupil is gone, replaced by a radiant, digital purple light. The demon steps back, her arrogance replaced by a primal alarm. She recognizes the energy radiating from the boy. It is not the aura of a student. It is not even the aura of the current age. It is the spectral pressure of a ghost she faced 700 years ago. Program engages suppression force to reconfigure and synchronize world line. A pillar of blue lightning erupts from the heavens, engulfing Jiama. The force is so violent it throws the demon commander back. She screams in genuine agony as the divine energy scores the area. Inside the light, the system announces the activation of high-tier blessings. Pain immunity. Divine regeneration. The blessing of transition harmonizes the power, preventing the student's body from tearing apart under the strain. Agor stares into the blinding light, her face twisted in horror and recognition. She screams a name that has not been spoken in centuries. Bokian. The light disperses. The boy stands. He is no longer crouched in defeat. His shirt is torn, his body battered, but he is enveloped in a calm, ethereal blue flame. The sashimi knife is held loosely at his side. The blessing of the sword god has engaged. The student has left the battlefield. The ancient legend has taken his place. The digital clock on the phone screen displays nearly 7 in the morning, yet the academy grounds remain suffocated by an unnatural darkness. Ryojo Saki stares at the horizon where the sun should be, sensing a profound rawness in the atmosphere. Nearby other students begin to stir, confused by the pitch-black sky that defies the passage of time. The dawn has not failed to arrive. It has been blocked. At the center of the devastation, the pillar of blue lightning dissipates, revealing the figures standing within. Kang Jama is no longer the student who struggled against a superior foe. He stands shirtless, his body etched with glowing lines of divine energy, holding the sashimi knife with a casual, terrifying grace. The demon commander, Egor, stares in disbelief. The presence emanating from the boy is not human. She screams the name Hokin, a legend that should have been dead for centuries. Siegfried von Nibelung, battered and healing his own wounds with green energy, watches with wide eyes. He witnesses something that defies his understanding of swordsmanship. Jama moves, and the world seems to lag behind him. He appears instantly behind the demon commander. Egor realizes with horror that her senses cannot even perceive his shape. He has transcended the speed and presence of a human being. Panic sets in for the demon commander. She realizes that this existence is a threat to the entire future of her kind. Screaming in desperation, she unleashes her full power. The skills blaze and tempest detonate, engulfing Jama in a sphere of apocalyptic fire. She laughs maniacally, believing she has incinerated the anomaly, but the fire means nothing. From within the inferno, the system continues its work. The blessing of flexibility, the blessing of regeneration, the blessing of transference. The restrictions on the human body are bypassed. The blessing of the sword god is fully released. A single vertical line bisects the massive fireball. He is the heavenly sword. Jama swings his arm. The force of the strike does not merely dispel the flames, it severs the unnatural darkness hanging over the world. The sky itself splits open. Miles away, the students look up in awe as the black clouds are torn asunder, allowing the morning sun to finally flood the academy grounds. The darkness that had swallowed the dawn is erased by a single stroke of a sashimi knife. On the battlefield, the demon commander falls. She attempts to regenerate, but her wounds do not close. The strike has severed the very source of her mana. She realizes she is dying. The divine energy leaves Jama's body. The burden of hosting a god is too great, and he collapses, falling unconscious to the ground. Seeing her enemy vulnerable, the dying demon commander gathers the last of her strength. Refusing to accept a meaningless death, she fires a concentrated beam of flame at the defenseless boy, intending to take him with her. The attack never reaches its target. Siegfried von Nibelung steps between the flame and the student. With a swing of his own blade, he scatters the demon's final desperate attack. He looks down on the creature with disdain, condemning her for attacking an unconscious opponent. As he prepares the finishing blow, the demon commander mistakes his energy for that of another ancient hero, a rune. Siegfried corrects her. He declares his name proudly as Siegfried von Nibelung, and with a surge of blue energy, he obliterates the remains of the enemy. The silence returns. Siegfried kneels beside the unconscious Kang Jama. He checks the boy's vitals. The breathing is steady. There are blocked meridians, but no critical wounds. The boy has survived, channeling a power that should have torn him apart. Siegfried looks at the sleeping student with a mixture of fear and reverence. He recalls that in ancient times, humanity believed that natural disasters like storms, floods, and lightning possessed a will of their own. Paradoxically, people worshipped these destructive forces, seeking their protection. As he looks down at Kang Jama, the seasoned warrior realizes he is not looking at a mere student. He is looking at a force of nature, a calamity, or perhaps, a god. The news shatters the fragile peace of the human world. Reports flood the media channels, confirming a disaster that few are willing to believe. The Sword Emperor, Siegfried von Nibelung, humanity's strongest warrior, and a symbol of invincible power, has returned from Avalon Island permanently maimed. He has lost his left arm. The seven-star heroes, the guardians of humanity, face a critical vacancy, and the balance of power shifts ominously. Inside the academy, the atmosphere is suffocating. The students, usually focused on their own rankings and rivalries, are consumed by the rumors surrounding the incident. Whispers circulate through the lecture halls. While the world focuses on the Sword Emperor, the students discuss the fate of the special admission student who was carried out of the wreckage. The consensus among the uninformed is that Kang Jima is hovering between life and death, a victim of a battle far beyond a student's pay grade. Ryoja Saki sits in the lecture hall, her patience eroding with every whispered speculation. Two male students gossip loudly behind her, questioning whether Jama will survive the night. Saki's irritation flares. She turns, her expression cold, and orders them to take their conversation elsewhere. She claims she is tired from a lack of sleep, but her defense of Jama is transparent. She refuses to entertain the possibility of his death. To her, King Jama is an absolute constant. The idea of him dying is a contradiction she cannot accept. Yet, despite her outward projection of strength, the silence is taking its toll. It has been over a week since Kang Jama was hospitalized. Chloe has been inconsolable, crying daily, while Saki finds herself staring at her phone, waiting for a message that does not come. Driven by anxiety, the group attempts to visit the medical ward. Saki, Chloe, and Weapon arrive at the infirmary, only to be physically blocked by a wall of security personnel in dark suits. This is not a standard medical quarantine. The guards inform them that no visitors are allowed by direct order of the director. When Chloe tries to push past in a panic, she is easily shoved back. Weapon catches her, but the message is clear. The level of security implies that whatever is happening inside that room is a matter of national security, inextricably linked to the injury of the Sword Emperor. Elsewhere, Rachel Deemre conducts her own investigation. She analyzes the few scraps of information that have escaped the media blackout. The reports describe Avalon Island as having been turned into a boiling sea of lava. She deduces that a high-ranking demon must have invaded, and while the Sword Emperor stopped them, the cost was his arm. However, the forums are empty. Director Medea has scrubbed the internet and imposed a total information blockade. Rachel is left in the dark, frustrated by the Academy's ability to hide the truth. In the Directorate Private quarters, the mood is grim. Siegfried sits with a bottle of alcohol, staring at a tablet displaying a mission failure report. The entire Undertaker unit is confirmed deceased. Director Medea, a woman of sharp intelligence and immense authority, questions him about the boy's condition. The medical reports regarding Kang Jiama are baffling. When he was admitted, his body was a wreck, muscle fibers torn, nerves shredded, a physical state that should have resulted in permanent disability or death. Yet, the attending doctor reports a miracle. Not only has Kang Jiama recovered, but his body is healthier than it was before the battle. Old illnesses and imperfections have been wiped clean, as if his biology has been reset and optimized. The doctor calls it a miracle from the gods. Medea calls it suspicious. She notes that Siegfried paid for the entire ward out of his own pocket to ensure privacy, confirming that the Sword Emperor is protecting the boy's secret. Medea presses Siegfried for the truth of what happened on the island. Siegfried, looking older and more wary than ever before, finally speaks. He reveals that the entity they faced was Igor, the 4th Legion commander. The revelation strikes Medea like a physical blow. A Legion commander appearing in reality is a catastrophic event. Siegfried touches the stump of his arm, confirming that Igor was the one who maimed him. Medea assumes the worst, asking if Giama was injured by the commander as well, but Siegfried corrects the narrative. Igor was not just repelled, she was eliminated. Medea stares at the Sword Emperor, her mind racing. She asks if Siegfried took down a Legion commander by himself. Siegfried laughs a dry, bitter sound. He asks her if she truly believes that is possible. He admits that even he, the Sword Emperor, could not kill Igor alone. The implication hangs heavy in the room. If the Sword Emperor did not kill the commander, and the only other person present was the student sleeping in the ward, then the hierarchy of power has been fundamentally upended. Siegfried refuses to elaborate further, simply stating he will explain when they are all gathered. Days later, the students try to return to normalcy. Weapon, attempting to lift the gloomy atmosphere, approaches Saki and Chloe with a recruitment poster for their club. It is a colorful, childish design inviting people to join their adventure club. He hopes to cheer them up, noting that they have always relied on Jima without doing anything for him in return. Saki reads the poster, her face blank. Without a word, she tears it into pieces. Weapon is horrified, but Saki coldly states she cannot let Jima see such trash. It is a moment of levity, but it masks the hollowness she feels. She sits back on the bench, the noise of the academy fading into a dull buzz. The world feels empty without his presence. Suddenly, a hand rests on the back of the bench next to her. Saki freezes. She looks up to see Kang Jima standing there. He looks calm, composed, and completely healed. There is no fanfare, no explosion of energy, just the quiet return of the predator to his territory. The students nearby gasp, realizing the rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. Saki rushes to him, her composure cracking. Before she can speak, Jiama reaches out and flicks her on the forehead, a small, familiar gesture that grounds her back in reality. He calls her an idiot for worrying. For the first time in weeks, the tension leaves Saki's shoulders. The monster who hunts demons with a sashimi knife is returned. And though the world believes the Sword Emperor saved the day, the few who know the truth understand that the real power has just walked back onto the campus. Kang Jiama is back. As the shadows within the academy move to bury their secrets, Jiama finds himself pulled further into a destiny he never asked for. Next time, the mystery of the Sword God deepens and a legendary burden is passed down that will change everything. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on the journey.